Abby.
Hi, Abby.
Hi, Mina. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I actually held on this question, but I just want to start because we got to check in a little bit before. How are you doing? Like, how are you right now? It's your junior year. We're in February. Someone with a loudspeaker is going to drive by right now, so I'm going to hit mute. But how are you doing?
I'm doing okay right now. I think you said junior year is not for the weak. It's definitely hard. I'm balancing a lot of academics and sports on top of that. And so it's definitely been really hard on me, both mentally and physically, for sure. I'm definitely I've gone through burnout already this year, and it's kind of like the matter of fact of me trying to recuperate from that, which has been difficult, of course. But I have a great support system, and I'm very lucky to reach out to people like you and even to my parents and coaches about it. But without a doubt, there's so much pressure this year for me, considering factors of I have to perform academically and I have to make myself a recruitable athlete and so show up to all these showcases, traveling to the East Coast as somebody from the Bay Area, which is incredibly hard, and trying to tell my teachers my circumstances and try to get them on the same page. So it's been definitely challenging. So I'm just trying to navigate my way out of it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, because it's a journey that you're in the midst of right now too.
Yeah.
I wonder, you mentioned burnout.
Mhm.
Is that a concept that you have had to learn the hard way of what actually burnout is? Because I'm asking from my end where I had to learn the hard way where burnout is actually when your mental is also affected by this depletedness of from the physical state. So I wonder why do you use burnout? What do you
Um,
mean with
yeah, so I actually have gone through many burnouts, but never kind of realized I was getting very like tired of, the pressure and that like all the types of pressure that I had to go through, especially at such a young age. I started what's considered to be really late in field hockey at my sport. I started when I was 13, and so that's still a young age. And I actually remember I experienced my first ever burnout, reflecting back on it, realizing that I was going through a lot during that time, even at 13, when I was at a I was at a national camp and I was trying out for the camp. And prior to that, I had been nonstop training and grinding out my homework as much as I can as well, because I was going to a private school and they expected a lot more from me, which I understood. And I never really outletted that to anybody because I thought it was more kind of an expectation. I was expected to, play my sport really well and perform and be a good teammate, as well as off the field, kind of be an academic student and be at every single class. And so I didn't realize that, unfortunately, I had to go through it the hard way, meaning that I had to be physically pulled out of my sport initially and then realize, oh my goodness, I was overworking myself so much that I was kind of seeing my sport as a chore. um and that really sucked. I tore three ligaments in my right ankle, and yeah, and it was in the midst during that time of my national tryout, and I really wanted to continue doing it. And I did something that I don't recommend, which was instead of going to a doctor, I went to an acupuncturist and did treatment for like a week and rested only for a week and demanded that I go back on the field, because I was like, there's so my parents, they invested so much time into already like my tryout, and my coaches are expecting so much from me. And so that's kind of when I realized the pressure really got to me. And I feel like a lot of the times when I was going through that, my mentality was go, go, go. So I never really had a moment to stop and reflect, like, oh my gosh, like I'm not in a good place mentally. I'm treating my sport and playing my sport as if like I have to do it rather than I enjoy doing it and I love the peers that I'm with. And so I kind of realized then, after I got my injury and had to be pulled out for like a couple of days, that maybe I should slow down a little bit. But then, the burgeoning pressures from everybody else around me contributed me to like continue on with the tryout, even though I really like shouldn't have, because following that, I sprained my ankle again and had to be out for a month.
Oh my God.
So it
Your
was,
body.
yeah, my body was telling me no, but I felt really pressured by everyone around me and myself. Like I put an expectation on myself almost to perform a certain way and to just work continuously without any breaks. And I think having that mentality at such a young age really set my future up for how I would deal with things. And it wasn't until, another like injuries that I had to pull me out of those situations, like forcibly, that I realized, okay, I really need help because I was not getting put into like a great mental state. And my parents realized it, my coaches realized it, but I was the last to realize that that was going on for me. And so when it finally hit me, I didn't know how to get out of it. It was something that I was so used to being like in that mindset of like, I don't need help.
Yeah.
I just need to keep going and it'll be all fine, right? And that's when I reached out to AFH to see if I could get that support system. And I met amazing people like you and Joy. And I've been so much happier and I've known my limits since. And I'm just so grateful to be able to have, AFH to depend on almost as like an additional support system that I could outreach and ask for more assistance and help. So yeah, that was when I first experienced burnout.
I want to like give you an applause because that is no, you are sharing your story and you're sharing it so well. And I know it's a journey to go through all the emotions that arise and for other people to know outside of you what the situation that you're going through, but still within ourselves, it's
Mhm.
hard to actually acknowledge the truth. And so it's what is strength that you've been through this so early because this was your story is more like my story from college and now just embodying and acknowledging that it's so many injuries. My body has been talking to me and my parents know, my coaches know the truth, but to actually sit with it yourself. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of
Thank you.
course.
And Athletes for Hope supports you all the way. So hence you're here. So a question also in regards to why we're here is you are involved in the athlete mental health space within different avenues.
Mhm.
And I wanted you to come on here and to share a little bit about the PBS documentary that the segment, as well as your podcast, and anything else when it comes to within your campus and outside of your campus walls. So please take us through the journey. Like where did it start and where are you today? And we will
Yeah,
link
no.
everything
Yeah.
that is there below.
No, I love that question because I was really scared to talk about, like, looking back at it, I was really scared to even speak out about my own experience, let alone the encounters I've had with professional collegiate coaches and just the total environment that I was in at that time. And so when my pushing point into starting a podcast and more and talking more publicly about, mental health was when a really close friend of mine she tore her ACL and a couple of ligaments in her thigh. And she came to me saying that she didn't want to continue her sport and was really in a rough place. And so when I think it had to hit me first to see that the people around me are severely affected by it, but they're just really good at covering it up and concealing, their emotions and what's really going on. And so I get it. It's a very competitive environment. You never want to show you're tired or you don't want to continue on with your sport. And so I think there wasn't really much transparency to start with and like actuality about the issues that were going on in my own community and my own sports community. And so I think after I had a couple of talks with my coaches and realized they weren't supporting me, sadly, as much as I felt like I should needed to be supported, I decided to start a podcast or just talk more publicly about it. So, I mean, technically, I always talk with my peers and we always share our stories. So, I was like, why not bring that and elevate that to a more public audience? And so that's what I did with athletaXX. And I wanted to cover a wide range of stories from every single sport. I had the privilege of meeting and speaking with Christy Yamaguchi, who played in the Olympics as the first Asian American. And just hearing those stories are incredibly so empowering. I definitely think storytelling is something that is so powerful in so many aspects of life. And for me, that was really impactful and really helped me during my hard parts where or hard times where hearing my peers or somebody that I knew go through something similar and come out of it and how they navigated that, which was truly inspiring as somebody who was in such a dark and hard time and place at that moment and at such a young age. And so I was like, there has to be other people that are struggling with the same exact thing. And so I started that podcast initially, and then I was able to have the privilege of becoming a member of my local radio station at KQAD, who also collaborates with PBS. Um, and I became a youth advisory member and been able to carry out projects. And one of them was creating a short segment on a topic that we're very passionate about. And naturally, I wanted to spread the word around about mental health and what everyone kind of struggles with. And it was such a heavy topic that I didn't want to, give some injustice to it by shortening it or any way of sorts. But so yeah, I came with them and I said, I have this amazing idea that I really want to speak about. And I know it may trigger a few people that listen to this, but I think it's really important we speak on the topic and on the matter. And it covered, I was able to speak with someone from Stanford who's a field hockey player there and, hear her journey. And it was so eye-opening. And I was like, everyone needs to know this perspective and that it's not all black and white and so narrow-minded in the sports world as a female athlete, particularly. There's so many, unprecedented societal expectations we have to go through too that I didn't realize we went through, but when she expressed it to me again, and you know, allowed me to share the piece, I realized how the depth and the sincerity of the problem really, the core of the problem really came from. And I was just so grateful to share that segment of her story and the challenges she went through, and on top of that, the broader challenges of mental health. Yeah, so that was really exciting. It's going to be aired on KQED's app and PBS's app for a period of time, and then hopefully on WHYY in Philadelphia. So I'm very excited and proud to share that. It was the first to come out, so I was super nervous, but I'm very proud of the work I did, and I was happy that I could do that. And I got a lot of positive feedbacks from peers who were surprised to hear it because the topic was so just dramatically different from the rest in terms of perspective. And I was very excited about it. I worked really hard on it, and a lot of time and effort went into it. And so I'm glad that that was kind of the, feedback that I got from everyone.
And it feels good, right? Because the
Yeah.
impact continues compared to a grade that we stress with for ourselves and yes, to get into an institution. But this is so impactful, and it's so cool that you can be sitting in front of me, and I'm so proud of you and inspired by you, Abby, because it's a huge level of strength and also your willingness to just put our vulnerabilities and what are other people going to think aside and just going for it. So good job, great job. So 2025 is here. We're in February. What are you looking towards this year?
That's such a great question. I'm looking towards a lot of things. There's definitely so many parts of my life that are going on at the same, like simultaneously. And I would say, if anything, I'm working right now on a research paper for athletes' mental health, kind of diving deeper into that level. And I'm really excited to share that because it's going to be with many athletes' voices being shared in there and kind of an analysis on what's going on. And in retrospect, kind of the reality we have to live in and bringing that to the forefront of attention. I definitely am excited to share that, but also very scared because of, right now everyone's everyone sees mental health as such a big taboo and stigma. And I really want to break down that, barrier that's making it seem like that because I really don't think on a deeper level that's the case. I experienced it as a high schooler. Everyone says mental health is like, everyone kind of jokes around about mental health because they think it's so, I don't know, weak. At least that's the experience that I had. And so going into it, I was very, scared to even talk out about my mental health because of that, perception that was going around in my community. And so I'm really excited to bring this up and to show everyone there's a lot more to mental health than you may think. So that's kind of a project that I'm definitely working on and trying to get more resources for. And so I'm really excited because it's something I'm incredibly passionate about. And yeah, that's my biggest 2025 project that I'm working on. And of course, we have other aspects of being recruiting and that journey, which is so scary. It is so
Oh,
scary.
I know,
Um,
I know, I know.
yeah, I've never been through it. No one in my family has been through it, so it's kind of like a first time and it's really scary talking to college coaches and going to camps. Um like sadly, I've had some, rocky encounters with coaches who, shouldn't have said certain things or said certain things to players in a certain way. But I think that's what kind of pushed me forward to even talk more about mental health and talk more about being an athlete in this space. So yeah, that's my 2025 projects.
I love it. I love it. May I share just a little of my story when it comes
Of
to the
course.
recruiting part? And
Yes.
it's for you just to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Because for me, one of the best advice I heard was it's not the end of the world. Like whatever school you get into, you can always
Uh,
transfer, you can always work towards, right? It's not the end all be all, and life does continue after those 4 years. And for me, during my university years, I've been enrolled in three different universities, and I dropped out of two. And because I wasn't able to get into any universities when I started the recruitment process, which I was a little late in from Norway. So I started a university in Norway. That was not the plan, Abby. And I was still on the national team in Norway and
wow.
still fully pursuing sports, but also academics was important. And 2 years later, I got into UC Berkeley, and I was there for 4 years, completing my bachelor's. But then my last year of my master's, I dropped out because of my own health. And so I decided to move back to Norway, and I dropped out from a full ride, and I was injured at the time too. So I took care of just what I also like calling holistic health, because the mental health is, it's so important, and it's an important term that we use today because it's emphasizing that we're more than physical, but then we're
Yeah.
also more than mental, where we bring in the emotions and we bring in the spiritual part of just believing in something higher than ourselves and having something that ground us.
Mhm.
And with that, I did finish my master's at Berkeley and reapplied for a summer so I could be
Amazing.
enrolled and fully done. And then I'm also at the point at that time, I'm like, but I'm not done with education, and I'm not done with sports. So I applied to Columbia in New York and I got in. And so I started
Congratulations.
their,
Oh,
thank
yes.
you. So I started their master's in psychology program there, but that also wasn't the right program for me, and the tuition fees were too high, and so I dropped out. And so it's just like these paths that we go on, Abby, and everything, the people that you'll meet, either way where you end up, it's just like there is something in each of these corners. So I'm so excited for you with that. I just want to say I am excited for you for where you will end up. I know that you'll work hard towards your goals, but also keeping in mind that Abby is a whole person, and I'm going to
Yeah.
take care of her throughout the process and continue with that into college. So thank you for listening. It was just like, we're going to
No,
be kind to her.
yeah, no, it's hard. It's definitely hard because I feel like especially going through the recruiting process, I feel almost like a product where I can get dropped at any moment and I wouldn't know, and just kind of not having that full transparency sometimes throughout the recruiting process with coaches is really difficult, especially with the restrictions of being able to talk or call with somebody on a D1 level, right? And that's been definitely hard for me to navigate through, just because it's hard not to compare yourself to where everyone's at, because everyone's at a different process and at a different time in the recruiting process, and no one has one same story as another person or another athlete. And I think just knowing that definitely keeps me grounded in a way, and talking with you about your experience 100% helps encourage me that it's not like an end-all decision if I decide to go one place and I'm like stuck, if I feel like I have to be there and kind of that burden. Because that's one of my biggest fears, is going and applying to university that I think I love, and then having such a difficult place navigating my way through it. So that's one of the biggest fears that I'm going through personally, because I'm like, there's so many options to choose from, but it's like, am I looking just at the field hockey program, or am I looking at just the academic program? And it's definitely been challenging in that sense to find a program that'll just fit you perfectly. And I don't think there's any program that'll fit you just like as a whole being, and it's definitely hard. So I think understanding that and going into it is so intimidating in and of itself. And yeah, it's a scary process. It's an awful process. Sending out
I,
emails to coaches,
I know.
talking with them because of such the deep power dynamic they have.
Yeah.
Um, it's so incredibly stressful. And I'm going through it right now. I'm going to shoot showcases, I'm going to events, and you see the line of coaches that are set up on the field just watching with their clipboards or iPads, and that's so it's so scary. It's so scary. I my nervous system really can't tell a difference between, seeing that line of college coaches, or like being in a mental health disparity, because I feel like that really reflects where I am, and it's contingent. My performance is contingent on how, I'm feeling at the moment, 100%. So it's definitely been hard, but hearing, these stories like yours about, everything working out, is so encouraging, and it just kind of uplifts my spirit a little bit, for sure, about what I'm going through, as a field hockey player in California. So I love your story, so thank you for sharing it.
No, thank you for sharing. And everything working out, like I wouldn't even use those words for myself, because I went to college solely for sports, and it became about something so much more important for me, like my passion for holistic health, but it didn't turn out how I expected it to be. And I wonder, I want to ask you a question to everything you just said, and how terrifying to have this line of coaches just judge you based on your appearance, and they can go home and feel well, and you have to go home and not know. And so I wonder, what helps you through this process that another high schooler might want to hear or need to hear. And I can start by just sharing that through the process of recruiting, of continuous just injury after injury throughout my college years, what did help was, one, having a mentor, or two or three, just having people outside who knows me as the person that I am, that I can lean on and call right after that
Yeah.
game or that practice with those recruiters. Or and having those affirmations or having those beliefs within ourselves that I'm gonna have fun, and a reminder before or after you step on that field, like I'm here to have fun. I believe in myself. Like what works for you? I'm gonna relocate because it's
No
starting to rain,
worries.
but I'm here. So please,
Okay.
yeah, please.
Yeah, it's definitely intimidating. I feel like every sport goes through, that trial of seeing college coaches lining up to see a particular game or showcase. And it's really nerve-wracking when you see a school that you want to go to be in attendance. And I think definitely one of the biggest things that helped me debrief before a game, particularly a high intensity and high stress game or like high pressure game, would be breathing exercises. I was actually proposed this by a peer, and at first I was like, I don't think breathing exercises would help me, but it takes is really like 5 to 6 minutes of just calming down, you know, your mind, your breath, your body, and just mentally preparing yourself before going on the field so you don't have so many jitters and you're not constantly thinking about, is this coach watching me? Am I doing good enough? Um, and then another thing would be journaling. That just helped me so much. I think, you have so much to say if you after a game that was high stakes, and you don't if you don't really have an outlet to go to, journaling is such an amazing way to do so. And I thought when I started it, I was like, I don't see how this would help me, but I think you have to stick with it a lot longer, and reflecting on certain things definitely take out the emotional aspect of it and brings in a logical viewpoint of, your thoughts and what you were going through at the time. And after writing certain how I feel and writing things that I did down, I kind of could reflect back on it and say like, okay, I could have handled this a lot better, or I shouldn't have beat down on myself so much and pushed myself so hard during this game, because it cost me to be more nervous, and it caused me to have more anxiety, which honestly gave me an incentive to not only try to play better, but instead on the flip side, it made me play worse because of the amount of pressure I put on myself. And so kind of those notes definitely help me because I can go back to it too and say, this didn't work out for me. Let me try something else rather than sticking to my habits, which is incredibly hard to break away from. And so definitely breathing exercises, journaling are something that really grounded me during difficult and high pressure moments. And of course, just talking to peers about, oh, I'm so nervous, and having that shared experience really brought me a lot of support and kind of like reassurance, like, okay, it's not just me that's going through the stress. I know so many other people are experiencing the same exact thing as I am. And so kind of those two definitely helped ground me a lot more when I was entering, those more scarier tournaments or scarier games at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day. And at the end of the day, I think it's like somebody told me that I really look up to as a coach was like, it's just a game. It's one game out of like the 1,000 games you played in your life, right? And coaches know that one game you can't fully scope out who they are as a player. And hearing that really changed my perspective, as silly and as noticeable and easily um, like as obvious as it may seem, it was hearing it from somebody like my coach, really helped me put like my pressures and anxiety at ease because I was like, yeah, it's just one game. And coaches know that we have off games and we have really great games. So I think that's what really helped me push through a lot of the times.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you for your patience. You saw it started raining.
Oh my gosh, I know it's pouring.
But I'm so glad that it's funny because we have the same coping mechanisms, and I'm just getting into the trust of breath right now, which entails trusting your body. And as athletes, we are so used to, like you're saying, like we're so mind driven, and we're so persistent on staying consistent and dedicated without checking in with our own bodies. And so to be able to do the breath works that you're saying and to trust your body in that moment, I just commend you for that. So good job.
It
And
was hard. It was hard to get there for
it's
sure.
hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard. And finding like those coaches that you're talking about, it's just, and no matter what position they have or role or title, but finding those people that you trust in, that those words that they will say that that's all you need to hear to reset or to continue. And the journaling, and there's so many great prompts out there as well.
I
Uh,
know.
Journal prompts like we shared during this athlete mental health week as well. So thank you for sharing that, Abby. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you would like to say during this time? Do you have any other questions like for me? Is there anything else you wanted to touch in on?
No, I would just say, as a high schooler, right, who, has a lot of anxiety, plays a sport, mental health is definitely seen as an oxymoron for athletes because mental health is seen as something that's so weak and undermined, right? It's seen as like almost a weakness, and athletes are seen so strong and, they always succeed and they do well and they push themselves harder. And so I think that's what scares so many kids my age, and even, on a higher level too, to reach out for help. And I think once that, barrier is pushed down and comes down, um, it becomes so much easier to ask for help and to just talk with others who've gone through the same experience, who play on such a high level in their sport. And so I'm just so grateful to have AFH's support, your support, and it's just so amazing to hear everyone else's stories like yours. And so I'm really thankful to be here.
Thank you, Abby. I'm always going to be here, like seriously, to support you. So
Thank
thank you.
you.
Yeah, and if we have any questions come up after this recording is shared,
Mhm.
I will send them your way. So thank you, Abby. I'm gonna hit end now.